Okay, is my presentation clear for everyone? Is it on now?
Yeah, I can see.
Thank you. Vicente, is this coming out live as well on LinkedIn?
No, we are not live on LinkedIn.
Oh, okay.
But LinkedIn sent a warning
reminder
for everybody talking about the event.
Excellent. All right, it's 5 past on my side of the world. It's 5 past 2. I'm sure we can get started. I'm expecting that we get a few more people joining us during the webinar. So thank you, everyone. Welcome. I hope you're all as excited as I am. It's something that, you know, the relationship between the PMO-CMO. I've had some interestingly healthy discussions with the project management office in the past where I've worked. And I'm sure some of you, when you try to do some searches around, you know, the relationship that exists between the PMO and the CMO, I think the common narrative when examining the roles is that you find PMO versus CMO, or, you know, even suggesting that the CMO is, you know, merely a sub-function of the PMO. This tends to imply that there's a sense of rivalry or tension between the two essential entities. However, our focus here today is on fostering a collaborative and mutually beneficial relationship. All right, so that's why you will see from our heading right there, CMO and PMO, better together, bridging projects and people for sustainable change. So this is what we'll be talking about. Just some house rules before we begin. So we have taken, you know, all the necessary precaution to make sure that this is a safe zone as well. And the registration kind of helps us, you know, with the link that we sent as well. We will be sending you the recording. We'll share the recording with you after the session. And as you have seen, we've also started recording the session as well. I will be monitoring the chat. So your activity there is encouraged. If there are any pertinent questions, so I will manage the timing of posing the questions to Sean. I think Sean actually prefers maybe taking at the end of the presentation, but I think to encourage engagement, if there are any important you know, questions or points that are raised within the chat, I'll be monitoring those and putting across you know, to Sean during the presentation. Okay, so just a little bit about us. We are the Change Management Institute. We have over the Africa training centers. Sorry, it says my connection. Can you all hear me? I'm getting a notice that my connections are stable.
It's better now.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that. All right, I'm actually surfing in between 3 and then changing 3 providers. All right, so we have in the past 12 years trained over 12,000 delegates worldwide. Our courses include HUCMI level 1 and 2, and we've got HUCMI to Agile as well. And we also have new courses in change leadership, as well as AI and change management. All right, so I think without further ado, I will give you a little bit of talk in terms of what else we are doing, some exciting things that we're doing at the end of the presentation. All right, so without wasting any more time, I would really like to introduce My colleague, Shan. Shan has, I've gotten to know a bit, in discussing with, preparing for this webinar. And some of the things that have stood up for me is extensive experience within portfolio program and project management environments. She's also held key roles as both PMO and transformation leader. She has established and managed global PMOs across diverse industries, overseeing the delivery of strategic change portfolios valued in the multi-million pound range. She has, I think, a passion for sustainable change, understanding that true change extends beyond execution. She has always embedded change management into her frameworks. And this approach ensures that organizational outcomes are not only realized, but sustained over time. All right. She also has 25 years of mentorship and coaching. She has served as a mentor coach to professionals in the change management field. And currently, Shan has just set up her own consultancy and coaching company dedicated to guiding organizations and individuals in adopting best practices for PMO and change management tailored to you.
Thank you, Marlon, for that a wonderful introduction. Right, technology now. I need to share my screen, so hopefully you'll be able to. Please let me know if you can see it. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay. It says, okay, sure you can't see it? Okay, right, let's try again.
Yeah, it's there now.
Good. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Okay, welcome everybody, and I'll say thank you very much to the HUCMI for giving me this opportunity to speak to you all. This presentation should take about 45 minutes to an hour. As Marlon said, there'll be an opportunity at the end for questions and discussions, but we do encourage you to put your questions or any thoughts in the chat, and Marlon, as he said, will call out any salient points where appropriate. So this presentation is about us, and actually looking at change as a whole and not as separate entities, sort of thing, and not with change managers or with project managers, but actually how can the whole change management industry work together to produce better results. So the purpose of today, is to understand how we can work better together. So we're going to talk through what people understand what a PMO is, what a CMO is, and then how those particular offices can work together, looking at where we have common overlaps and where we have potential disconnects. We look at practical models for effective collaboration going forward. I'll outline a couple of real-world case studies of where we've worked together to make a better end result. And then at the end, as I said, there'll be an opportunity for discussion. So hopefully that is all well understood, and hopefully everyone here is in the right place for this particular topic. I always say that the technical part of change is the easy bit, and it's actually making sure that that change is understood, embedded, and delivering the results is the tricky bit, sort of thing. So, but actually we have to see it as a whole change in itself and not various bits and pieces. Right, let me move on. Okay, so first of all, then, sort of just to set the scene, let's identify what people think a CMO is and what people think a PMO is. So CMO, Change Management Office, also focus on that delivering strategic goals, but through the people, behaviours, adoption and communication, and also making sure that the culture of the company is not changed as that change is introduced. So key focuses are on key responsibilities, our stakeholder engagement, change impact assessments, the training and communication of any change that is going to be taking place, and making sure that the adoption and the readiness is being measured and communicated in the right way.
Okay, sorry. Just a note there, is it possible to put it in full presentation mode?
It is in presentation mode, can't you?
We can see the notes.
Oh, I do apologise.
Okay, that's
Let me
fine.
try again then. I can't, okay. You can't see my screen. Okay.
Okay.
Hang on, right. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, right. Let me start
Fine.
again.
Okay.
Because I can see the screen I'm supposed to be sharing. Right. Is it in mode now?
We can see, yeah, if you can press presentation mode. Here we go.
Can you see it now?
Perfect.
Right, okay. I'd obviously got my screens fiddled up. I don't claim to be a technical expert here at all. Okay, so where was I? So I think I've spoken about a change management office and what a change management office is. And then I'm going to talk about what a PMO office is. And actually, there are various names that, you know, a PMO can be. It can be a portfolio office, a project management office, or a program management office. And some people probably have heard of the term P3O, and that's where it relates to. Other names that it can be called is a TMO, an SRO, a VMO. So TMO is Transformation Management Office, SRO is a Strategic Realization Office, a VMO is a Value Management Office. Slight nuances against each of those offices, but basically the whole idea is to make sure that a organization delivers its strategic goals and gets the benefits out of those deliveries, and to making sure then that those deliveries work on time and actually deliver the outcomes. So their key responsibilities are more about the tracking and reporting of overall change initiatives, making sure that the company are doing the right thing, so prioritizing those activities, because we all know for every all the change that a company wants to do, we're not going to have enough money to do everything. So actually, what are the key things that that company needs to hit? You know, and then also looking at resource allocation across those delivery initiatives, and then making sure that the benefits are realised. Okay, so just to sum that up, you know, on a comparison, CMO's focus is on the people, the adoption, the sustained change, the communication and the readiness arena. The PMO then is the delivery of the overall outcomes and strategic goals, and making sure that how we achieve that is on time, within scope, and actually we've got the right governance and frameworks around it to do it correctly. So in summary, the CMO focuses on people and the PMO focuses more on the outcomes of a change initiative. Okay, however, and I think we've all experienced it, there are confusion and overlaps between, because people hear these terms and then they hear another term, they don't know how everything relates and who does what. I would say that probably there's no right way. It should be set up as to what is best for that organisation. And actually, you might want to argue at some point that the name itself is irrelevant, as long as the function of that overarching change office is understood and communicated out to everybody. You know, because I said the confusion arises because there's similar acronyms. I can't even say that word. Both are seen to manage change, but with fundamentally different approaches. I think, Marlon, you touched on this at the beginning. You know, a lot of project managers often view change as just a timeline slippage and see it as an added extra rather than something that should be included from the start. And I think it's probably fair to say that change managers can see project management methodology as too rigid and missing some of those human elements that are key to actually the success of a project. So where we think about the common overlaps, and we'll come on to this in a bit later, and how we can overcome this, is that, you know, change readiness can be measured by the change management office, but it's also measured by the project management office in terms of stakeholders. Communications planning, you know, sort of thing, can be done by both areas. So can training and onboarding, and also the stakeholder mapping for a particular initiative, particular program, or for the whole change initiative as a whole. So when those two offices are not aligned, you know, I think we see where the resistance to change across the company, you know, intensifies. people are seeing as change being done to them rather than change done with them and for them. Also, I think I mentioned earlier, I think projects can be seen to be delivered the technical solution, but because time and effort has not been looked at how to embed and adopt that particular solution, it could seem to be failed in adoption. And because of that, the stakeholders can receive conflicting messages, depending on who's doing the reporting, and efforts could be duplicated across both teams. So we need to understand, okay, where are we now? What can we do going forward? Sorry, my screen has decided just to, right, okay, cool. So we have got operations for collaboration, and I'm talking about PMO and CMOs before, but as I said, it could very well just be one office where everyone works together, or there could be neither office, but actually there's people and individuals in each of an organisation that are doing these teams. So we'll talk about PMO and CMO in these broader aspects. So if we talk about these offices can align their efforts, then that is where, I call it magic happens, when true sustainable organisational transformation can happen. We really have an opportunity to make change good. And I have to admit, I always believe that a project is not done until the benefits were delivered, and change management has to be part of the overall whole. But maybe that's because I started my project management career many moons ago, when change management was included as part of the overall project management, and we called it implementation management or business readiness management. Things have changed over the years, in terms of change management become its own discipline, quite rightly, but also then from a project management perspective, portfolio management has become its own discipline. And I think probably there's been some, growing apart and disconnect, and now we need to think about how everything comes back together. Because actually, if you think about it, we've got shared goals. We've got that strategic alignment. No change should be undertaken unless it's actually in line with the strategic goals of a particular company. And you can argue that we shouldn't be doing change unless there is some business value in it, sort of thing. And then you can actually realize the benefits from that particular change. Again, from another shared goal is we need to have the transformation that is sustainable, because actually if you are changing a way of working, it needs to have a life of its own, and it needs to be able to live and breathe after that change has been done. And also, various offices need that strong stakeholder trust and actually believe in that actually what we're trying to do is the right thing and we're doing it correctly. So a couple of high-level collaboration points from me are that we can actually start the planning from initiation together, and actually I would argue, and this is what I've always done in my project management career, is identify your key stakeholders from the start, and actually that's where your change managers need to be come in, because then you can start to create the joint stakeholder map. You can understand exactly who's going to be impacted negatively or positively by that change, and then you can start to do that communication right from the start, and all the activities that need to be included for that piece of work can be put into the overall plan. Because actually when you report back up to the senior stakeholders and to the exec, they need to know that actually the benefits doesn't come when the technical change has been done. It's been done when actually it's been embedded into the organization. So we need to make sure that that is understood right from the start, and that can only be done when we are doing that joint planning from initiation. Likewise, you need to understand from a delivery risk perspective, the technical, but also all the people risks, because they need to be managed just as well as everything else, because they have an opportunity. They will not an opportunity, I wouldn't call risk an opportunity, but they will have the ability to derail your plans, your timelines, if they hadn't been thought through and managed and mitigated as right from the start. Something else that I've always spoken about is we need to make sure that change management activities are included on any reporting, sort of thing, because they are key activities along with everything else that need to be understood and need to be reported upwards, because if there are problems or blockers, they need to be put in front of the right people so they can be unblocked. And again, integrated governance boards, change management can have their own working boards and their own sort of project boards, but actually reporting upwards, going upwards to the top, that all the change management activities need to be understood, need to be seen where they are, so that actually the whole picture can be understood and not just bits of pictures. So therefore, for me, that is why we need to collaborate together, which is why I've always advocated for bringing in the change management activity right from the start. And I'm not saying as part of a PMO, or I'm not saying we're part of a CMO, I'm just saying the overall function together needs to be part of a whole, and it needs to be that integrated process all the way through. So from a PMO perspective, then that can bring the structure, the planning, the overarching delivery picture. We can bring the tools, the templates, and the governance, and understanding of the overall risk management, and then the change management element can bring the empathy, the engagement, the adoption of that particular change into an organization. It can help with the communication, the coaching, making sure that the change fits into the culture, and is adopted so as well, and also making sure that actually we are ready to implement, because I know, again, I've worked in places before when I've just joined and technical changes have gone in and that the people haven't been ready to take it, and then they wonder why things don't work out as well as they should. So you can see that what I'm trying to build up is a picture of everyone working closely together to understand the actual overarching view of what that change is, then how best as a company do we manage that, and how do we make sure that it is successful or gives that change the biggest chance of succeeding. So that's what I'm thinking, and that's what I think is the way forward, and that's where I think where Marlon and Sharon and myself have sat down and discussed how we can do this going forward. So if I can give you a couple of examples from my career of where one is where maybe the two areas haven't worked together, and then one where it has, and you can see how the outcomes have been. So I've worked for various companies over the years as permanent and as contractor, and one of the companies I worked with was a transportation company, and it was in the ferries industry. And when I first joined, they had just rolled out a new check-in system. Basically, the old systems have been 3 or 4 systems that the check-in operators had to look at to get various bits of information, put it all together so that they can create a manifest for their travellers. When it's car and when it's personal, I think that wasn't too bad. But when you're talking about large lorries with larger freight and various restrictions and things like that, it could take up to 10 minutes per lorry for checking in because of the old system. So they'd created a new system that integrated all the various bits of information together so that it was just on the one screen, and therefore the check-in operator had everything to hand. However, once they rolled it out, and they were anticipating the check-in time to go down to about 2 to 3 minutes, so saving, good time savings there. However, once it went in, they realised actually it was still taking as long as it was before, and the reason was when we did some deep dive into it, because obviously the benefits weren't being realised. Was realised actually there hadn't been any what I call real training of the operators. There had been a, here's the new system, this is how you work it type thing, but that those people hadn't been involved in the design of the system in the first place, and so therefore it wasn't a natural progression of information and how that particular operator would understand it, and B, they actually hadn't had any proper time on the system to train themselves. So as a result, morale was low. They were going back to their old ways of working because at least they knew those. So when we looked at it, we actually realized that we had to bring in some role-based training and actually sit down with people and make sure they had practice on the system and they understood. And then we brought in what we call floor walkers, so we had people on hand so that to help people to understand and get better and understand the system. So actually once that was done, and after a period of time, we could recognize that they were starting to adopt the system. They were overcoming the view of the change had been done to us. We've had no say in the matter, and actually worked through and actually tweaked some of the things on the system to make sure that it was much better for those end users. So at the end of the day, we had increase in the user satisfaction, and we did get to that faster adoption timeline. Okay, so that was where things weren't done properly and the technical change had been done in isolation and imposed on the end user. Now, somewhere else in my career, I also worked in air traffic services, sort of things. So actually supplying the systems to help the planes fly across UK airspace. Because of the nature of the systems, because of the impact and consequences of things going wrong, this particular organisation had long used what we call human factor specialists and change management specialists, so that any changes that were brought into the air traffic controllers was done in consultation with those at the start, because it had been recognised that certain colours, certain fonts, certain things are more conducive to the way your brain works and how you pick up information. So that's always been factored into a design of a system, sort of thing. So the example I've got here is, and it's less than 10 years old, introducing of electronic flight strips from paper-based strips, and you think technology's been around for a long time, but this was about 9 years ago, this was put in. So basically it was moving to an electronic system so basically the air traffic controllers didn't have to use pieces of paper. It was all going to be done on the screen. So human factors, change management were involved right from the start. So all the way through the project, and from the PMO's involvement, we had them involved from the start in the planning, the design, the building, the testing, all the way through, and then actually rolling out the training and the communication across to everybody was done as part of the overall project. And as a result of that, it was a very successfully implemented project due to the nature of the work, and because of the systems. You couldn't do a big bang implementation here. You had to put in very small implementations and then grow that. And each time you put in a system, so the first time it would go into an airport at midnight, and you do dual testing, sort of thing, and then you'd build it up to maybe between 3 and 4, between midnight and 6 o'clock in the morning, to get more test cases and things, to making sure that it was running with the old system. That way we could learn, we could understand what was working, what wasn't learning, feed it back, so that actually that then fed into the next iteration, so that as and when it was rolled out across the bigger airspaces and across the whole of the UK airspace as a whole, it was actually a system that had been designed with the end users in mind, with the actual realisation of everything that needed to be done, and actually the people the air traffic controllers felt they were involved with the change, they adopted the change, and they were kept communicated and up to date at all times. And actually that project went on to win Project of the Year at the APM Awards because of the way that it had been done. So you can see, just using slightly different approaches, how that a project can succeed, and can succeed well, and deliver everything that it was meant to do when everyone is working together.
Great. Hi, Sean. Before the next slide, there are two questions that have come through. Unfortunately, is Audrey, I think Audrey has just dropped off. She had asked a question earlier. I think this was posed to everyone as well. She asked, is anyone working there with where service transitions, I think, are being expanded to cover the change management activities with senior leadership, thinking that they are similar roles? I'm struggling with that at the moment.
Right. I think I understand that, Marlon.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because obviously in something like the air traffic services, there was a lot of service management and ITIL methodologies as well. So actually, she is right that we did have that third dimension as well. So there was the change management, the project delivery, and then the service engineers, and actually all had to work together, you know, to make sure that it all worked together. And again, as part of the overall framework within that particular company, we created cross-function working groups to make sure that the ITIL methodology, the change management methodology, and the project delivery methodology worked cohesively together, so that we weren't asking for checkpoints at different times. We had a roll up of information, and it wasn't, and if information was going to one board, it would then come back into a central board, so that the overall picture was seen together. Does that answer the question?
I get it. I think if I represent Audrey well, she's just left for a meeting, but I think I'm also satisfied with that. All right. And then we had Vicente asking, could you share your perspective on the maturity of PMO-CMO integration, both in the UK and on a global scale?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Could you share your perspective on the maturity of PMO-CMO integration worldwide and in the UK as well?
Okay. It pains me to say that I think what I'm describing is exception rather than the rule. I think a lot of companies don't consider the change management aspect until it's too late, and they've suddenly realized they've got to, oh, we've got this change in the system. We now need to let people know, you know, sort of thing. So and I think it then feeds back onto that view of change being put upon people rather than being, you know, and I mean done to people rather than having a say in the matter. And I think there's a number of reasons for that. What I have noticed, and this is just my perception, is that over the last 10 years, I don't think project managers are trained to the level that they should be. I think a lot of people are just thrown in, you know, right, okay, you're now a project manager, go do, you know, and often they're not given the training, they're not given the resources, they're not given the skill set to do that. And quite often it's also on top of your day job. You've now got this piece of work I want you to deliver. So I think there's a lot of people who don't know what good looks like. I think a lot of people just think, I've got to get, these are all the activities I think I've got to get done. And I think this is where change management is left to the last, because it's not something that immediately comes to mind. I also think that a lot of, you know, and I talk about PMO and I talk about a lot of companies don't have those, you know, sort of thing. They will just have literally a whole load of project managers delivering change willy-nilly, you know, sort of into various bits of an organization, because I think from my last looking at, I think it's less than 20% of companies will have that overarching, change management office, value management office, whatever you want to call it. People, the companies who adopt that see results from it, but I think it's less than 20% of companies in the UK do that, and I think there's several reasons for that. I think it's a lot of people see it as a nice to have rather than an essential, and maybe that is because they don't see the benefits aren't black and white. They aren't written down as if if you do this your bottom line will go up and down. The benefits are more non-financial sort of thing. But actually, if you sit down and you create an office, a central office straight.
Oops. Sorry, Sean. I think I muted you by mistake. I just wanted to mute someone else. If you can unmute, sorry about that.
How far did I get to?
No, it's fine. It's fine. It was just for about 10 seconds. That's fine.
Cool. Yeah. So I think there is definitely some education to be done across the piece around the value of a central office. As I said, the name is not as relevant as it should be. It could be change management office. It could be just basically a central office that then manages and looks across the whole change activities across an organization. I think a lot of people think it's a nice to have, and that's part of the problem. I also think that a lot of companies don't understand what change management is still. I think they're more comfortable with project management, but I think it's that change management element. They don't realize. They just think, oh yeah, people, yeah, you'll be able to pick it up. You'll be able to do that quite simply. And actually not realizing that actually that's going to lead to more and more issues amongst the workforce, because again, it's going back to change done to you, dissatisfaction and low. But I don't know, and please, this is way outside of my area of expertise. I would imagine that would lead then to people leaving an organization and things like that. And I don't know if people have actually made the connection between the two. So that's from a UK perspective. And I think from an international perspective, I think there's pockets, from what I've seen, I've seen where most of your, sort of members are, sort of thing. And I apologize, I do not have much knowledge of the South American world whatsoever. I've got some understanding of US and European change. And again, I think it's sort of similar to the way that the UK is that there are people who embrace it, who recognize the need for it, and then there's a lot of education to be done. I've worked most of my life in financial institutions, apart from the last 10 years, maybe more in the transportation. And the banks were very early adopters of a central office, because they recognized the benefits that could be done, but they also trained people. I started off in Barclays 30 odd years ago. The training I got was fantastic. Every single element, and that's why I said it included change, it included implementation, it included business readiness as the overall thing, because they recognized that you do not get the benefits until after that benefit is realized, and the change is embedded and you're getting the benefits.
That's it. Great stuff. And from the UK perspective, you speak of, you're more familiar with, do you see any changes happening in the next 5 years?
I'd like to think so, Marlon. But I think if anything, it's going the other way, because I think with the use of agile coming in, I think people think they don't need that centralized view, because it's supposed to be short, sharp, get things in. And that, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you keep changing, if you keep hitting the same people with change after time, sort of thing, it becomes manageable. You need to understand the change fatigue, that if you're hitting the same people at the same time, people are just going to get absolutely worn out by all this change, you know. So there needs, I'm not saying don't do it, I'm saying it needs to be a coordinated management effect, you know. And actually, guys, these people have had change for the last 6 months. Give, you know, let's put change somewhere else, give people a chance to recover, learn what they're trying to do at the moment, rather than you're changing the goalpost every couple of weeks, you know, sort of thing. So again, I'm not saying agile isn't good, because in certain, you know, for certain products, it's the way to go. But understand the impact on the end users, understand the impact on your, you know, and no organization sits with it, you know, operates in silos. You know, you're all in an ecosystem, so you've also got your customers, your suppliers, you know, your industry standards, and all that needs to be considered as well. And actually, if you don't understand what change is going on at the strategic level and at your people level, that it's not sustainable. It really isn't. And actually, you are going to start seeing people, maybe switch off might not be the right word, but you're going to see people lower morale, you know, disengaged, and actually probably walking away. How do we put all that together? I think there needs to be some work done at, you know, with your, you know, HUCMI, the Change Management Institute, with P3O, Axos. There needs to be conversation at this level to see how it can all be brought together. And, you know, people like myself, yourself, Sharon, you know, singing the praises of a joined up approach.
Right. Well, thank you so much for that. I think there are no further questions in the chat for now.
Okay.
All right.
Which means I'll move on to the next slide. So I think the message I'm hopefully getting across here is that actually, if we work together, you know, we are better together, and, you know, we actually deliver the capability and the outcome for that particular change, you know, sort of thing. Because, and I think I've mentioned before, I think the most successful organizations recognize that sustainable change can only happen if we have an idea of what change is going on across the piece, which elements are going to be impacted, and then how we can make those impacts as easy to transform as possible. And that might mean moving some deliverables further out because of the impact on a certain area, you know, because they're going through too much change. So I think without collaboration, you know, you might get the technical success, but you won't get the people brought on. You know, with limited collaboration, you can bring in some adoption, you can bring in some you know, measures of success, but it will be inconsistent, and actually you could have pockets of success but others not. So for me, and I, you know, I'm so brought into this, it needs to be full integration, you know, where we can then see that change that can be sustainable, and then it's got the actual realized benefits that can be done. Because actually, I talk about technical and change and people change, but to actually do some change, you don't need any technical, you know, sort of things. There can be just ways of working and things which are just all people. But if you don't have that factored into the bigger views of everything, you know, the people who are involved in that and the end users might get impacted by something else. And you need to understand that overarching view for it to be sustainable. I know I've said that several times, but for me, that is the key. That is what we really need to focus on. You know, sort of thing. So if I come on to my next slide, I'm going to suggest a few ways that we can do this if your organization doesn't do this already, you know. So start having those cross-functional conversations, you know, sort of thing. Don't just think, oh, I'm in my own little area, I just got to carry on. invite, your PMO, your CMO leaders to informal knowledge sharing sessions, to try to identify any common goals and challenges. As I said, when I was working for the air traffic services, that's what we did. We brought cross-functional teams together to make sure that actually we could listen to and then try to improve the way that our methodologies worked, and one size doesn't fit all, and you'll need to tailor your approaches to different types of change, but what would be the best way forward in this particular case, and not just roll out a prescribed framework or methodology, right? You've got to follow that regardless, so reach out, if your company is not, if you're sort of seen as an afterthought, or your change managers are not being involved in those conversations, try and reach out to somebody, your equivalent in the PMO or in the project delivery space, and have those conversations. You never know where it might lead. So for me, then also maybe you can maybe document where there are current overlaps and where there are duplication of effort, and things like that, and then call them out, and then look for how you can then streamline that going forward, sort of thing. So actually, go back to an old-fashioned racy, sort of thing, and actually determine, who's going to do what and where, because then actually everybody knows what who's doing what in that particular piece of work, and actually it's easily understood. Maybe think about piloting a joint initiative, select one upcoming project to test, and actually, one that that's starting to come up, go, actually, we want to be involved right from the start. Now, I know that's easier said than done, because often a lot of people don't know a project started until they get pulled in at some point. But actually, if you hear, or if you know about something that's coming up, ask to get involved right from the start, ask to get involved in the planning, ask to join the kickoff sessions so that you can put your input into that. And then another thing for me then is making sure, again, you're invited to the right discussion forums. It doesn't necessarily have to be a steering committee, investment board, but actually understand what your decision forums are within your organization, and see if there's any change management representation on those. And if not, raise that above, or ask to join. And actually, because I have found when you bring that whole view together, if something's not working within that, so maybe the adoption or training hasn't happened because of certain reasons, or as more likely often the delivery of the solution hasn't been done because it's running late, sort of thing. Therefore, your training, knock-on effect on your training, it can be understood as a whole, rather than, oh, well, testing's not going to finish till here, but we still expect the training to go on. But actually, the people doing the training have been booked to do something else, sort of thing. So again, it's understanding that overall picture. When you know that picture, you can pull levers. And actually pulling the levers is the key then to that sustainability, and making sure that the right things are being discussed at the right times. And you can only do that when you have both the representation from the project side and from the change management side in those decision forums. I'm not saying you can have conversations outside, you can have working groups outside, but you still need to have a way forward, solutions discussed and ways forward agreed at those decision forums. So you've got to be in there to have a voice.
Right.
Okay, and I think I've rattled through that quite quickly, actually. So I think I've come into my last slide. So a chance for thoughts, discussions, questions.
Yeah, we have 2 questions. The first one came from Irene. Did I pronounce your name correctly? Irene? All right. Okay, she put in there that I'm aware of the concept similar to the PMO called the Value Management Office, the VMO.
Yeah.
All right. And it focuses on delivering value rather than purely taking on delivery. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on how the VMO might interact or align with the CMO.
great question. And again, this all adds to the confusion around acronyms and what particular offices do. So value management offices tend to be created, especially when people have got a lot of products and they're doing a lot of agile, sort of delivery, because each incremental, sprint or bit of delivery should be adding value, and then the value management office changes it, controls the value and makes sure that the value that particular change was going to do is being realized. However, it's the same thing again. You're only going to get the value or the benefits once it's been embedded, and actually delivered through people. Because again, it could be a new product feature or whatever, but if the person using that particular end product doesn't know how to use it or hasn't been trained properly, you're not going to get the value from that particular feature or whatever. So again, it needs to go back to, if it's a value management office and a change manager, still need to work closely together to understand what differences are going to be made by that particular change, who's going to be impacted by it, and actually what is needed to be done for those people to make sure they understand and you can use the new features. So again, it goes back to that, the basics of understanding what's being changed, how are we going to check, how are we going to train it, how are we going to adopt it. And then actually a lot of value is not recognized the minute something gets put in, it's over time, sort of thing. And then it's that continued use of that particular product or that particular system that will then build up the value and the benefits. And then correlate to that, once it's in, you need the feedback loop. You need an ability for the users to feed back to see what's working, what isn't working. And again, that can then be factored back into a change management office to feed back into the features. And can I just say one more thing? The other thing is then, from a change management office perspective, because obviously a value management office look at more the technical things. If a particular system or product is being rolled out across multiple sites or across things, it will be done on certain, it might all be done at once, but more often than not, they're done on a phased approach. So you would need to understand, for change management office, needs to know what's going on across your whole organization, what is going on at each particular site or whatever. So actually, right, that value, that particular product feature is going to be introduced here, but we can't do it here because of this. Maybe there's some regulatory thing or whatever going on, especially if it's an office in a different country. We can't do it then because we've got this particular piece of work going on or regulatory stuff in that particular country. So you need to understand, so the central office needs to understand that massive big picture so that you can understand impacts across the piece. And I think a lot of companies don't know that. They know little bits, they don't know the whole landscape. And for me, I'm trying, every company I go into, I try to introduce that overarching change landscape. So you've got a baseline to work with.
All right, great stuff. Okay, so just for my own, this is the first time I'm hearing of a VMO. I'm just curious, how many others on this platform have worked in a VMO before as well?
They're starting to, because of the agile way of working, people go into product management and service management. They called it a value management office. So because I think a PMO is seen as structure and governance and things like that, whereas a value management office is looking at the outcomes. I'm not saying you still need structure, you still need governance, but maybe a lighter scale. So I think it's changed the name from a PMO, which is seen as the copper, and value management is more to make it a bit more user friendly.
That's it. All right, it's starting to feel like it's just you and I on the platform. So for the next questions, I'm going to ask Akbar if you can unmute and put across your two questions, and then we can also get everyone else's involvement. Yeah, would that be okay, Akbar?
Yeah, sure. However, it's okay. I think you can just read the questions that I chat as well. Sorry,
Okay,
the signal quite bad in here. Thank you, thank you.
okay, all right. So I will read on your behalf. Okay, the first question he had was,
Thank you.
how do you deal with a culture of superficial agreement to avoid conflict?
Ooh.
Yeah.
No, that's a deep one.
That is deep, yes.
I'm assuming you're coming from personal knowledge here.
Actually, this is a culture that you will meet lots in Asian culture, especially in the Southeast Asian part,
Right.
Yeah.
where the people in here they have tendency to avoid conflicts, and they will just say yes, however they will not do it.
Yeah.
So you don't understand the real progress and the real status of where you are. Is that what you're trying to get at? Because everyone will say it's, yeah, we're happy, we're good, and you don't, and
Yeah.
so the real issues aren't being aired. Is that what you mean?
No, actually the real issue is about commitment and get them to commit. That's the real issue.
Okay.
Because there are some issues with our clients that we already assess and trying to identify what's the motivational factors, what's in it for them. It's already being identified, and sort of like getting their commitments verbally or even in returns. However, it's like a superficial commitment, and they wouldn't even really do it and commit to whatever what we agreed upon, something like that.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
crumbs. Okay. So in terms of resources or time or things that the activities you agreed up front were going to be happen, and then it's, oh, I don't have the resource to do that anymore, or I can't commit the time to it. Yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And are these guys key stakeholders?
You you even have this kind of response from even at like a CEO level as well.
Okay. Okay. So there, for me, I would argue then that you need a central office much more than, sort of thing, because actually, as a company, you need to understand what are your key priority initiatives, sort of thing. And actually, when it comes to things like that, you then have a roadmap of that the exec have signed up to have agreed, sort of thing. And then if somebody within, and I've come across it before where an exec, right, I've got something more important to do than give people to that particular initiative. But if you can then go back to your overarching roadmap and say, okay, as a company, we have agreed to do these 5 things. Yeah. Everything else is below that. So therefore you can have an argument, if you've got that, you can have an argument to say, well, actually, that is nowhere near as important as this. And actually, if you don't do this, one of the key strategic goals of the company are going to be done. Appreciate if you haven't got that, that's a much harder conversation to have. And then I guess you would need to feed that up your chain of command, and then fight at the boardroom. Because sometimes who shouts loudest and works, and that's for the companies that don't have that particular structure. That's how they manage change sometimes, which is not the right way to do it, because, we've all been there when you've got people with pet projects or whatever, push that forward because they have no overarching strategic view of what they need to do to achieve their goals. So you'll have different people all going off in different directions and not moving the company forward in one. Has that answered your question?
Yes, in a way, yeah. Thank you very much for your response.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to?
Yeah.
No, I mean, because in reality, right now, when we're dealing with this kind of problems, currently, one of the ways that we see it's working is that we need a very strong leadership. We need an iron fist leaders actually that that doesn't, well, very strong and very iron fist, and so sort of even like a very like a very strong. Sorry, I lost the words. Thank you.
No, that's are you saying that you don't have a strong leadership at the moment in where you are at the moment, who can't fight your corner?
Yeah, that kind of problem usually happens when we don't have a strong leadership, and so in order to face the problem, sometimes we have to change the leaders to even a stronger leaders.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's good and bad, isn't there? In sort of in most companies and things like that. And you and part of the role that we play, you know, sort of further down is trying to advocate for that, you know. And I don't know in your particular company we've got ways round, or you've got some sponsorship elsewhere. But again, I would go back to, if you could, you know, if you get that central office, and you do need sponsorship for central office to succeed, you need strong corporate sponsorship at the top as well, because that person, whoever it's going to be, will have to keep everyone else from fighting, you know. And unfortunately that is a fact of life. I can't give you a specific solution there, Akbar, but it's I feel your pain. You know, I think we've all been there at some point, you know, frustrated by the processes and the people around, that you can't move forward how you'd like to.
Yeah, I just want to share one perspective on that particular on this topic, what Akbar had raised. It's a familiar battleground in this part of the world. And Akbar, the only solution that I see for you is that the change management specialist must be a good organizational psychologist as well. He should be able to read the people and act accordingly. That's very important, number one. Number two is that you need to have a very strong leadership with a very clear focus on the outcome of the change that is going to be, or the project that is going to be implemented, or where the change is going to lead to. The vision and the mission has to be very clear, and the leadership should be very strong and knowing that this is required.
That's it. Yeah.
Thank you.
I like that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ramana. Thank you for that. Great. Okay. I had a great question here from Robert. I'll come back to the other question that you raised, Akbar. But just to move on, I'll come back to that. So Robert had asked, would integration of the two functions be served well by creating a new name for the integrated function? Is there possible benefit from sunsetting the terms PMO and CMO for something new?
I think that's a great suggestion, Robert, because I think each of the names has got connotations, the history, you know, and perceptions against each of them, you know, sort of thing. And actually, even though I'm talking from a PMO perspective, I personally wouldn't have any problem with calling it a change management office, because actually you're managing change. You know, I've worked for a change director, I've worked for a CFO, I've worked for a delivery, you know, a CTO. So it depends on the organization and how they put it all together, because I don't think there's any right way or wrong way, but it's actually more of understanding of what that function does, you know, sort of thing. And if it's manage all change, I personally don't have a thing called it change management office, you know, because as long as the function of that is understood, and actually you include change management, you include project management, and you include portfolio frameworks in there, then you've got one central office, you know, that does everything. But I think everyone has different perceptions of names, and that'll be based on an experience of one you've worked with, and it could be very good or it could be very bad. So maybe we come up with a whole new name, you know, sort of thing, and I don't know what that could be, but I think you're right. I don't see why we would have two separate ones unless within an organisation that headed by two different people who haven't agreed on their respective accountabilities. And that, for me, that should be a discussion at the board level. You know, we can put forward suggestions and we can put forward proposals, and it needs to be agreed at the board level. Do you have an idea, Robert, of what you would call it?
Yeah, my first nomination is Communication Symphony.
Oh,
like
To
that.
contrast
I
it with
like that.
a
Okay.
communication traffic jam. Another idea would be so there's a body of work called the Friction Project, and within the Friction Project, through their interviews and the book writing, two authors were asking their subjects, executives, where do you work? And one of the executives said, I work at a frustration factory. I had already been using the term expectation factory. So that it's a little bit more process and factory oriented, but again, I think that sort of brainstorming can lead us to a better title to minimize the baggage of the past.
I like that. Maybe there's something in that, you know, as a paper to be written or something, or you know, to go forward to start that new way of thinking, you know, because actually then you've got a green field, haven't you?
That's it.
Thank you.
That's it. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I just want to hear from everyone else. What do you think of Robert's suggestion right there? Everyone else? Anyone else on the platform? Okay. All right. That's fine. We can move on. I've got Tembakas from SA, I'm assuming. Would you like to ask your question, or you want me to repeat it for you? It's always great when it comes from the source of the question.
Thanks, Marlon. Good afternoon, everyone. It's afternoon on my side. Yes, I am from South Africa. So my question is, I just want to understand, and I think it's something that I struggle with and we struggle with in the organization as well. How can we get the change management success factors, or adoption metrics, as others would call it, to reflect that they actually contribute to the project KPIs and ultimately then also contribute to the business KPIs? Because what I find is that the project side would have their KPIs they need to deliver on budget, on time, etc. We would have our KPIs in terms of adoption and utilization, and then the business has their own strategic KPIs that they need to meet. How do we effectively show that what we're doing from a change management perspective actually contributes to the project management and then ultimately to the business, to what the business wants to achieve? Yeah. Thanks, Marlon.
Okay, welcome.
Okay. So in an ideal world, and I appreciate, you know, we don't operate in an ideal world, you know, sort of thing, all those metrics should be connected. So actually everything at the top, you should then, everything that you collect for individually from each particular department should roll up, you know, so therefore there should be a way for those change management ones to go on up, you know, sort of thing. If there isn't, then I think the first thing that needs to be done is to see, what do you collect? You know, do you know what your metrics that you collect? Is it Thembakazi? Is that how I say your name?
Thembakazi.
Thembakazi, apologies.
Yes.
I have the same because people can't say my name either. You know, so I mean.
Thanks, Sean.
No, you can, but a lot of people, because it's a Welsh name, so therefore people can't, you know, a lot of people can't say it. Sorry, but I'm saying, so you know your KPIs, yeah, that you collect?
Yes.
But have you discussed them then with the project teams, you know, and on the reporting for that?
So we try and have those conversations, right? And at times we get to, you find that people will nod and say, yes, we understand, this is what you collect and this is what you need to deliver, and then ultimately show. But in the real world, when we are now in delivery mode, you find that just flows out of the window. and we're now all looking at project KPIs, then if the business says you need to deliver at this time, whether the change management metrics have been delivered or they've been hit, it doesn't really matter. We need to deliver on budget and at the specific time. And then you find that you miss steps. You might not do training properly. You might not even communicate properly. You might not engage people properly because you have this date that you're working towards to. Or, so it's very frustrating and difficult at times.
So you're seen as the activities that can be shortened or cut, basically.
Yes,
because something, because you're at the end of the line, as it were. Therefore, if everything else slips, you still got to deliver everything within whatever time you've got left.
Within time, yes.
Yeah, and so therefore that impacts on the quality of the training, the quality of the adoption, and things like that, which is what you track. Yeah.
And depending on the type of project, because sometimes it might be a product, sometimes it might be a system, because I work in the financial sector. So we deliver different systems, products, technology, and all of these things. So you find that the metrics change. You would have the adoption rate, the utilization rate, but you also have maybe compliance rating, or you have training rating, change accepted, all those things. And I guess my question is, how do I make my business owners see that if we don't do it right from a change management perspective, we run the risk of having the project delivered, but then not meeting the business KPI,
Exactly. So question then, sort of thing, and I can't give you specific answers. I'm trying to sort of, if that was me, then your business owners surely are the people who are going to be impacted by that change. Yeah. So therefore they should be on the steering group or on the boards.
Correct. Yes. Correct.
Yeah. So therefore, if I was me, I'd want to know everything that was happening to make sure that actually, if I've only so maybe the education to them is, you've only got this much of training now, the impacts are going to be A, B, and C. You can go ahead with this date, but the consequences are we will not be able to, we can train 40% rather than 90%, sort of thing. Are you making sure they're comfortable with any consequences of their decisions? And I'm sure you probably do, but it's a question of how forcefully is that done? Because actually that will impact on their bottom line. Doesn't matter about your KPIs. Actually, if you don't get the benefit from that change, it's going to be impacting on their bottom line. So I think you probably have to talk through on that.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thanks, Ian.
I know it's not easy. It's not. No, because especially when they're pushing and pushing and pushing. But actually, you can say, yes, we can go for this date because I know maybe you've told the markets or whatever. But the consequences are this, and then leave the decision with them. And then once and actually, if they accept that risk, that's fine. You get it documented. You have it all laid out. And then you say this will impact on the KPIs as well.
Yeah. I do have an example, an illustration of, I think it was my first time working with a fully fledged CMO in Kuwait on a project. It had just been set up, CMO, PMO. And I remember there was tension from the onset because most of the approved projects from the PMO, the CMO was struggling with giving support because there were too many that were approved, and they needed to do, they needed to work on that. And I really admire how the leadership handled it. CMO went and said, hey, we've got all these approved, we're not getting the support. And they said, no, collaborate, talk to each other, find ways. And I think through discussing, exploring ways of working together, one of the things that the CMO came up with was a change impact assessment tool, quick one, that helped them to prioritize their projects. Because some of them didn't have impact and some of them could be when you look at your change impact assessment, you realize that some of them could actually work together, be combined, and not exist as separate because they're all aiming at the same things. And it helped us with prioritization and the timing. And they made it a standard now that they would have a change impact assessment, so I think when you had your slide there early on, when you spoke about what can CMO bring, I think one of those is what stands out for me. I think it was slide 5. What stands out for me is that, I think we can also bring in the tools that help prioritize projects.
Yeah.
On behalf, yeah.
I've never used a prioritization method that doesn't have an impact, change impact. And maybe because I've always thought of that, but you're right.
Yes.
It should be part of your prioritization process. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it will help on the, the scheduling of stuff, if nothing else.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And it became something that I think they had just adopted and made it part and parcel of the, the whole cycle. They will not release until they do have an input from the CMO. So that was just my example, and it's the only time I've worked with a fully fledged CMO, by the way.
Yeah.
Right. I'd like to hear some examples. My laptop is asking me, confirm the language you're speaking, and it says Portuguese. Okay, it's English. Okay, so maybe I'd like to hear from any one of you, those who've worked with in a fully fledged CMO. Anyone? Maybe share some shared experiences? None. All right. Okay.
I think that speaks volumes, doesn't it? I think it means that companies are not aware of the value of that central office. Yeah. Because it's seen as an overhead, it's seen as something that is a nice to have, but actually if you really sit down and think about it and you do your return, I've done it before. I've done business cases to set up portfolio office, but it has include change elements. You put a business case together, you can show the value in black and white financial terms, and not including all the other nice, the nicer, softer the benefits, but black and white terms, how much time and effort you can save over 3 to 5 years.
That's it. All right. I had another question from Akbar earlier on. He said that we should own more accountability, PMO or CMO. We should have more clout. PMO or CMO. So I don't know if you'd like to respond to that, or anyone else would like to respond to that.
Can you say that again? Go on.
Sorry, ideally it should be the. Sorry, Marlon Ramana here. I think ideally it should be the sponsor who should take the responsibility.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. I mean, at the end of the day, he is the one who's responsible for that particular initiative. So,
but I find that a lot of sponsors don't know what their role are. And again, we've had to do SRO training for people who are sponsoring, for them to understand the remit of their role.
I fully agree with you, Sean, but the challenge that we are actually facing in this part of the world, just the eastern side, especially India and all, is that the people just nominate a person like a sponsor. He or she doesn't know whether the importance of the project. And the projects that I have handled are mostly government oriented, and the sponsor is from a government nominee. And if the government changes, or if there is some kind of a controversy, that guy is moved out.
Yeah.
So we have faced so many things like this. So it's a question. Yeah, I agree with you on what you're saying, but at the end of the day, I think the buck should stop at the sponsor level, and the sponsor should be really educated. The only way that we can do is, as change practitioners or change leaders, we should have a strong organizational psychology to address all these things
in
going forward.
I totally agree. It can only come, change can only really succeed from the top down. You've got to have people at the top in agreement of what you're trying to do. And more companies are more dysfunctional. So many companies are dysfunctional. It's quite scary actually how they make money. But yeah.
That's it. Great stuff. I think Tembakazi also agrees with you that she also made a comment there to say that we take it for granted that sponsors know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. That's why I think it's in most change management approaches, we have a whole section on sponsorship alignment, what to do. Don't take it for granted that they're in a leadership position, they know what to do. Then Robert just added that if when the sponsor role is too big for one person, I think it's worth breaking the sponsor role into smaller pieces. Right? I think this makes for a good the next webinar, right? Sponsorship. I see a lot coming through on sponsorship right there. Right. I've also taken note that we just have 5 minutes left. And I know we've got one or two slides that we'd like to close by. I would take one more question. Any other question? Any burning question from anyone? I think we're good. All right then. If you can go ahead, Sean.
Right, so just like to say thank you for a really good conversation and discussions. I hope we can continue to work together, sort of thing, and be advocates for each other and actually work in collaboration rather than, against each other, because for me, the only way forward is collaborating. If you want to contact with me, there's my details on the screen. The QR code will take you to my LinkedIn screen, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. And I'd like to say thank you to Marlon and Vicente and Sharon for the opportunity for today's discussion.
All right, great stuff. Thank you so much for that. All right, and Sharon, you wanted to say something? Would you like to say something? Add something, Sharon?
Hello, hi Marlon. Okay, thank you so much, Sean. It was a very, very good informative session. Thank you so much. Marlon, I do have a few slides on the closing. Shall I share them?
Yes, please.
I'm sharing the requests. Okay. Are you able to see my screen?
It's coming up now.
Not yet.
There we go. There we go. Yeah. If you can put it in the presentation
Okay, that's
mode,
great.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Is it on presentation mode now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, cool. Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks Marlon. Okay, so guys, regarding this change management survey, do join us. It's a global change management survey, which is sponsored by the Change Management Alliance, CMA, and also HUCMI. So this survey actually explores how organizations approach change, from tools and methodologies to leadership and organizational culture. So let me share the link with you after this meeting. And then, yes, and if you're wondering what exactly is CMA, CMA is actually Change Management Alliance. It's a global community for change management professionals like us. Do join us. It's a great networking, great networking community, and also you'll be able to get a lot of information from there related change management. And for HUCMI, so HUCMI is actually providing a free version of the HCM book tools. This is a standard version for single projects. Do take a look. I think it's very, very good, especially if you're doing projects, single projects, and if you like to actually upgrade as well, we do have different versions as well. So do have a look. I'll send you the link later as well. And for more updates, for more information and updates, do follow us on HUCMI, CMA, Tribal Consulting, and also McKaram Consulting, and the PMO coach as well. So I'll share all these links in a while. I think maybe I can share it right now. Just a second. You guys got it?
We got it. Thank you. Yeah, see it.
Okay, cool. So I think, yes, I think that's all from my end.
Great stuff.
Any
Okay,
questions?
so we'll be sharing the presentation. We've got all your details. I think we captured that information when you registered. So thank you once again, and we look forward to seeing you in the next webinar. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Marlon.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Vasant.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.